Maria Santos wiped the sweat from her forehead as she finished cleaning the last rifle at the local shooting range. At 45, she had been working there for nearly 2 years, doing whatever jobs needed to be done. She swept floors, cleaned equipment, and served coffee to the members who came to practice their shooting skills. The shooting range was a place where important people gathered. Business owners, politicians, and wealthy citizens would come to practice and compete. Maria watched them from the corner of her eye as she worked, admiring their expensive clothes and confident attitudes. They never really noticed her, treating her like part of the furniture. Maria had always been fascinated by shooting. When she was young, her grandfather had taught her to hunt rabbits in the mountains near her village. She had natural aim and steady hands, but life had taken her down a different path. After her husband died in a factory accident, she had to work multiple jobs to support her 3 children. Every day at the shooting range, she would watch the members practice. During her lunch breaks when nobody was around, Maria would sometimes pick up the practice rifles and aim at the targets. She never actually fired them, but she would practice her stance and grip, remembering what her grandfather had taught her years ago. One afternoon, while she was organizing ammunition in the storage room, she overheard the range master talking to the club president about an upcoming regional competition. They were worried because their team was 1 person short, and the registration deadline was approaching fast. Maria continued her work quietly, but an idea began forming in her mind. She had been watching these competitions for months, studying the techniques and rules. She knew she could do it, but she also knew that someone like her would never be considered for the team. The next morning, Maria arrived at work early as usual. She prepared the coffee, arranged the equipment, and began her daily routine. But today felt different. Today she had decided to do something that would change her life forever. When the range master arrived, Maria approached him nervously. Her hands were shaking as she asked if she could speak with him privately. He looked surprised but agreed to listen. Maria took a deep breath and told him about her experience with firearms, about her grandfather's training, and about how she had been watching and learning from the members. She asked if she could try out for the competition team. The range master stared at her for a long moment, then burst out laughing. He told her that competitive shooting was a serious sport for serious people, not for cleaning ladies who had learned to shoot rabbits as children. Maria felt her face burn with embarrassment, but she didn't give up. She asked if she could at least demonstrate her skills, just to prove she wasn't wasting his time. The range master shook his head firmly, telling her to stick to what she knew best, cleaning and serving coffee. Throughout that day, Maria felt the sting of rejection, but something inside her refused to accept defeat. She had faced harder challenges in her life and survived. This would not be the end of her dream. That evening, as she locked up the range, Maria made a promise to herself. She would find a way to prove her worth no matter what obstacles stood in her way. She didn't know how yet, but she knew she had the determination to make it happen. Maria couldn't sleep that night. The range master's laughter echoed in her mind, mixing with memories of other times people had underestimated her. She remembered when factory supervisors told her she was too weak for certain jobs, or when teachers said her children wouldn't amount to much because they came from a poor family. The next morning, Maria arrived at work with a new plan. She had studied the range schedule and knew there was a 2-hour gap every Tuesday and Thursday morning, when no members were expected. The range master usually used this time to run errands or meet with suppliers. During her first secret practice session, Maria's hands trembled as she picked up one of the practice rifles. She loaded it carefully, remembering every safety rule she had observed. Her first shot missed the target completely, the sound echoing through the empty range like thunder. But Maria didn't give up. She adjusted her stance, controlled her breathing, and tried again. This time, the bullet hit the edge of the target. Not perfect, but it was progress. Week after week, Maria continued her secret training. She used her own money to buy ammunition, telling her children she was working extra hours to save money. During her regular cleaning duties, she studied the equipment more carefully, learning about different rifle types and their characteristics. She watched online videos on her old phone, learning about competition rules and advanced shooting techniques. Every spare moment was spent studying or practicing, always being careful not to get caught. Maria's accuracy improved dramatically. Within a month, she was hitting the center of targets consistently. Her groupings became tighter, and her confidence grew with each session. She began timing herself, simulating the pressure of actual competition conditions. One Thursday morning, disaster almost struck. Maria was in the middle of practice when she heard footsteps approaching the range entrance. Panic filled her chest as she quickly unloaded the rifle and placed it back in the rack. She grabbed her cleaning supplies and began wiping down the shooting benches just as the rangemaster walked in. He looked surprised to see her there so early, but Maria quickly explained that she was trying to get ahead on her cleaning schedule. He seemed satisfied with her answer and continued to his office. Maria's heart was beating so fast she thought it might explode. She realized how risky her secret training was, but she also knew she couldn't stop now. She was getting too good, and her dream was becoming too real. During lunch breaks, Maria would sit in her car and visualize perfect shots. She imagined herself in competitions, calm and focused, hitting target after target while crowds watched in amazement. These mental practice sessions became just as important as her physical training. Maria also began studying the psychology of competitive shooting. She learned about managing pressure, controlling nerves, and maintaining concentration during long competitions. She read about famous shooters who had overcome difficult backgrounds to achieve success. Her children began noticing changes in their mother. She seemed more confident, more determined than they had ever seen her. When they asked about it, Maria simply said she was working on improving herself, which wasn't entirely a lie. After 2 months of secret training, Maria felt ready for the next step in her plan. She had proven to herself that she could shoot at a competitive level, but now she needed to prove it to others. The question was how to do it without losing her job or facing public humiliation. The answer came to her during a conversation with her teenage daughter. Maria realized that sometimes the best way to be heard was to make enough noise that people couldn't ignore you anymore. Maria's opportunity came on a busy Saturday afternoon. The range was packed with members preparing for various competitions, and the atmosphere was tense with competitive energy. Several club champions were practicing, including Robert Martinez, the current regional champion who never missed a chance to boast about his skills. While serving coffee to a group of members, Maria overheard Martinez complaining loudly about the declining standards of competitive shooting. He claimed that too many unqualified people were being allowed into competitions, diluting the sport's prestige. Shooting requires breeding, education, and years of proper training, Martinez declared to his friends. Not just anyone can walk in and expect to compete with champions like us. The other members nodded in agreement, laughing at Martinez's jokes about amateur shooters. Maria felt her anger rising, but she forced herself to remain calm and continue serving. Martinez noticed Maria standing nearby and decided to include her in his performance. "Isn't that right, Maria? You clean the rifle, so you know how complex these weapons are. A person needs real training to handle them properly, not just lucky shots at rabbits." Maria set down the coffee tray and looked directly at Martinez. The range fell unusually quiet as everyone sensed something was about to happen. "I believe skill matters more than background, Mr. Martinez," Maria said quietly but clearly, "and I think anyone with enough dedication can learn to shoot well." Martinez laughed loudly, encouraging his friends to join in. "That's sweet, Maria, but competitive shooting isn't like cleaning floors. It requires precision, mental toughness, and natural ability that some people just don't have." Maria felt her heart pounding, but her voice remained steady. "Would you be willing to test that theory, Mr. Martinez?" The laughter stopped abruptly. Martinez stared at Maria with confusion and growing irritation. "What exactly are you suggesting?" "A simple challenge," Maria replied. "You against me, right here, right now. Best score out of 10 shots at 50 meters. The range erupted in whispers and gasps. Several members pulled out their phones to record what was happening. The range master heard the commotion and came rushing over to see what was wrong. Martinez's face turned red with anger and embarrassment. He had been put in an impossible position. If he refused, he would look weak in front of his peers. If he accepted and won, he would be seen as bullying an employee, but his pride wouldn't let him back down. "Fine," Martinez said through gritted teeth, "but when you lose, I want you to apologize publicly for wasting everyone's time and promise never to touch another rifle in this range." Maria nodded calmly. "And if I win, you donate $1,000 to the local children's charity and admit that you were wrong about natural ability." The crowd murmured with excitement. The range master tried to intervene, worried about liability and the appropriateness of the situation, but the members insisted the challenge continue. Martinez went first, confident and relaxed. He took his time with each shot, following his well-practiced routine. His first shot hit the 9 ring, followed by an 8, then a perfect 10. The crowd cheered with each good shot. When Martinez finished, his total score was 87 out of a possible 100 points. It was a respectable score that would have won most amateur competitions. He smiled smugly as he stepped back, certain of his victory. Maria approached the shooting line with steady steps. She had imagined this moment hundreds of times during her secret training sessions. The crowd watched in curious silence as she picked up the rifle and checked it carefully. She loaded her first round, took her position, and began her breathing routine. The range was so quiet that everyone could hear her heartbeat in their own ears. Maria fired her first shot. The electronic scorer displayed a perfect 10. A surprised murmur ran through the crowd. Her second shot was another 10, then a 9, then another 10. By her fifth shot, the crowd was completely silent, watching in amazement as this cleaning lady demonstrated skills that rivaled the best club members. Maria's concentration was absolute. Years of watching, learning, and practicing had led to this moment, and she wasn't going to waste it. Maria's sixth shot was another perfect 10. The crowd began to whisper more loudly now, and some members were taking photos and videos with their phones. Martinez stood with his arms crossed, his confident smile fading with each perfect shot. By the 8th shot, which scored a 9, Maria had already matched Martinez's total score. She still had 2 shots remaining. The range master watched nervously, realizing that his cleaning lady was about to embarrass one of the club's most prominent members. He wasn't sure whether to be impressed or worried about the consequences. Maria's 9th shot was her most important. She took extra time with this one, controlling her breathing and blocking out the growing excitement from the spectators. The shot felt perfect as it left the barrel. 10. The crowd couldn't contain their amazement anymore. Several people began clapping, while others stood in shocked silence. Martinez's face had turned pale, and he was staring at the electronic scorer, in disbelief. For her final shot, Maria needed only a score of 2 to win the challenge. But she wasn't satisfied with just winning. She wanted to make a statement that nobody would ever forget. Maria chambered her last round and settled into her shooting position. The range was completely silent now, with everyone holding their breath. Even Martinez had stopped scowling and was watching with reluctant fascination. The final shot was Maria's best of the day. The bullet struck the center of the 10 ring so perfectly that it enlarged the hole from her previous shots. Her final score was 96 out of 100 points. She had not only beaten Martinez, but had achieved one of the highest scores ever recorded at the range. The crowd erupted in Nadure, cheers and applause. Several members rushed forward to congratulate Maria, asking where she had learned to shoot so well. The range master stood in stunned silence, trying to process what had just happened. Martinez walked slowly over to Maria, his earlier arrogance completely gone. In front of everyone, he extended his hand and admitted that he had been wrong. He promised to make the donation to the children's charity as agreed. "Where did you learn to shoot like that?" Martinez asked quietly. Maria smiled and replied, "From watching you and everyone else here, from practicing whenever I could, from never giving up, even when people said I wasn't good enough." Word of the challenge spread quickly through the shooting community. By evening, videos of Maria's performance were being shared on social media, and local news stations were calling the range asking for interviews. The club president arrived that evening to assess the situation. He was initially concerned about the publicity, and the potential embarrassment to the club's reputation. But when he saw the positive reactions online and realized that Maria's story was inspiring people around the world, his attitude changed completely. Maria's children couldn't believe what they were seeing on their phones. Their mother, who they thought was just a cleaning lady, had become an overnight sensation. They were proud but also confused about when she had learned such incredible skills. That night, Maria sat in her small apartment kitchen, looking at her phone as messages of congratulations poured in from strangers around the world. She thought about her grandfather, who had taught her that true skill comes from dedication and practice, not from fancy clothes or expensive equipment. The range master called her that evening to discuss her future at the facility. He was embarrassed about his earlier dismissal of her abilities and wanted to make things right. "Maria," he said carefully, "I think we need to have a serious conversation about your role here. Someone with your talents shouldn't be cleaning rifles. You should be using them." Maria listened quietly as he offered her a position as an instructor and a spot on the competition team. It was everything she had dreamed of, but she wanted to think carefully before accepting. That night, for the first time in years, Maria fell asleep with a genuine smile on her face. She had proven that determination and hard work could overcome any obstacle, and tomorrow would bring new opportunities she had never imagined possible. Maria accepted the position as shooting instructor and team member, but she insisted on continuing some of her cleaning duties. She wanted to remember where she came from and stay connected to her humble beginnings. Her first official competition was the regional championship, just 3 months after her dramatic challenge with Martinez. Many competitors and spectators came specifically to see the famous cleaning lady who had become an internet sensation. The pressure was enormous. Media crews followed Maria everywhere, asking about her background and her sudden rise to fame. Some competitors resented the attention she was receiving, claiming she was just a novelty act who would fail under real competitive pressure. Maria felt the weight of everyone's expectations during the weeks leading up to the competition. Her practice scores remained excellent, but she worried about performing in front of hundreds of spectators and television cameras. Her children became her strongest supporters during this difficult period. Her oldest daughter, Carmen, took time off from her job to help Maria prepare mentally for the competition. She researched sports psychology techniques and helped her mother develop routines for managing stress. "Mom, you've already proven you can shoot better than anyone," Carmen told her the night before the competition. "Now you just need to prove it to yourself again." The day of the competition arrived with perfect weather and a record crowd. Maria had never seen so many people at a shooting event. News vans lined the parking lot, and photographers captured her every move from the moment she arrived. In the locker room, Maria changed into her new competition outfit. It felt strange not to be wearing her cleaning uniform, but she was determined to honor this opportunity properly. The opening ceremony was intimidating. As Maria was introduced to the crowd, the applause was thunderous. Some people held signs supporting her, while others seemed skeptical about her chances against seasoned competitors. Maria's first event was the precision rifle competition at 100 meters. This was more challenging than anything she had faced during her secret training sessions. The targets were smaller, the distance was greater, and the wind conditions were tricky. Her first shot was a disappointing 7. The crowd murmured with concern, and Maria felt doubt creeping into her mind. She remembered her grandfather's advice about staying calm after a bad shot and focused on her breathing routine. Her second shot was a perfect 10, followed by a 9, then another 10. As the competition progressed, Maria found her rhythm and began shooting the way she had during her secret practice sessions. By the halfway point, Maria was tied for second place, just 2 points behind the leader. The crowd was cheering loudly. With each good shot, and even the skeptical competitors were beginning to show respect for her skills. The final round was the most challenging. The wind had picked up, making precise shots even more difficult. Maria's closest competitor was Janet Williams, a 3-time national champion who had never lost a regional competition. Williams shot first, scoring an impressive 94 out of 100. The crowd applauded respectfully, knowing that this score would be extremely difficult to beat. Maria approached the firing line knowing she needed to shoot almost perfectly to win. Her hands were steady, but her heart was pounding so loudly she was sure everyone could hear it. Her first shot was a 10, then another 10, then a 9 that made her grimace with frustration. As Maria continued shooting, she fell into the same focused state she had experienced during her challenge with Martinez. The crowd noise faded away, the cameras became invisible, and only the target mattered. When Maria finished her final shot, the electronic score displayed her total 96 out of 100. She had won her first official competition by 2 points. The crowd exploded in celebration. Maria was surrounded by reporters, photographers, and well-wishers before she could even process what had happened. She had gone from cleaning lady to regional champion in less than 6 months. Maria's victory at the regional championship was just the beginning of an incredible journey. Over the next 2 years, she won 7 more major competitions, including the national championship that many thought was impossible for someone with her background. Her success transformed not only her own life but also the entire shooting community. Ranges across the country began offering programs for underprivileged youth and adult beginners. Maria became a spokesperson for the idea that talent could be found anywhere, regardless of social class or background. The shooting range where Maria had once cleaned floors became famous as the place where her story began. Visitors came from around the world to see where the remarkable transformation had taken place. The range master, who had once laughed at Maria's dreams, became one of her most vocal supporters and proudest advocates. Maria used her prize money and endorsement deals to establish a foundation that provided shooting equipment and training to young people from low-income families. She wanted to ensure that other talented individuals wouldn't face the same barriers she had encountered. Her children watched with amazement as their mother became a role model for millions of people around the world. Carmen quit her job to become Maria's manager, helping coordinate her competition schedule and foundation activities. The family's financial struggles became a distant memory. Martinez, the champion who had unknowingly launched Maria's career with his arrogant challenge, became an unexpected friend and training partner. He often told reporters that losing to Maria had been one of the best things that ever happened to him, because it taught him humility and opened his eyes to his own prejudices. The most meaningful recognition came during Maria's 3rd year as a competitive shooter. The National Shooting Sports Foundation announced that they were establishing a new award for individuals who had overcome significant obstacles to achieve excellence in shooting sports. Maria was chosen as the first recipient of the Inspiration Award, and her name would be permanently displayed on the Wall of Honor at the Sports Hall of Fame. The ceremony was held at the same range where her journey had begun, with hundreds of spectators and competitors in attendance. As Maria stood before the Wall of Honor, reading her name engraved in gold letters, she thought about the long journey that had brought her to this moment. She remembered the humiliation of being dismissed as just a cleaning lady, the secret morning training sessions, and the terror of that first public challenge. Her grandfather would have been proud to see his granddaughter's name honored alongside the greatest champions in the sport's history. The little girl who had once hunted rabbits in the mountains had become a legend. In her acceptance speech, Maria spoke about the importance of never giving up on dreams, regardless of what others might say. She thanked everyone who had supported her journey, including those who had doubted her abilities and motivated her to prove them wrong. "This award doesn't belong just to me," Maria said, her voice carrying clearly through the packed auditorium. "It belongs to everyone who has ever been told they weren't good enough, smart enough, or worthy enough to pursue their dreams. It belongs to every person who has been underestimated because of their background or circumstances." The crowd gave Maria a standing ovation that lasted for several minutes. Many people in the audience were crying, moved by her words and her remarkable story. After the ceremony, Maria walked through the same range where she had once mopped floors and cleaned equipment. Now her photograph hung prominently in the lobby, and young shooters studied her techniques in training videos. That evening, Maria returned to her old apartment neighborhood to visit friends and neighbors who had supported her from the beginning. She wanted to remind herself and others that success hadn't changed who she was inside. As she tucked her youngest daughter into bed that night, Maria reflected on how completely her life had transformed. From a simple woman removed from the shooting line to a champion whose name would shine forever on the wall of honor, her journey proved that with determination, practice, and courage, anyone could achieve greatness. The last thing Maria did before going to sleep was look at a photo of her grandfather that she kept on her nightstand. "Thank you for teaching me to aim true," she whispered, then closed her eyes with the satisfaction of a dream fulfilled beyond her wildest imagination.